Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. You know, I feel like there is just a lot of division in this world, and especially in the online JRPG appreciation space. We're so divided from each other. It seems like we're always coming up with new ways to pit ourselves against one another in pointless squabbles that do no good to anybody. I don't know. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to rise above it. So, I thought, why don't we create a tier list of all the JRPGs that I've played for the Switch and definitively say, in a way that nobody could possibly disagree with, which games are best and which games are worst. What do you say? Shall we do that? Let's do it. Now, I've tried to compile a comprehensive list of Switch JRPGs that I've played. I may be forgetting some because I got them dumb brains, so I can't promise this is 100% definitive, but I'm reasonably certain that this is every Switch JRPG that I have played. So, with that caveat out of the way, let's make a tier list. Why don't we? I've never done this before. I feel like I've set it up properly. I don't know. How do we do this? Do we go alphabetically? Do we jump around? Let's jump around, because I don't want you to know what's coming next. I want to zig when you think I'm going to zag, if you know what I mean. So why don't we start with Crystar? If you spent any time on my channel, especially last year, you probably have heard me rave about Crystar because I loved it so much. It was such a cool story. The performances were great. The music was beautiful. The gameplay and the graphics were kind of meh, but everything else, the aesthetic elements, really just lifted it up for me. So do I want to call that an S tier? I mean, it's an S tier story, S tier performances, S tier music. But does the gameplay drag it down? Does it make it an A-tier game? This is harder than I thought it would be. I'm gonna say it's an A-tier. I think if the gameplay and the graphics were close to the same level as the story and performance and music, etc., it would be an S-tier game for me, no question. But the kind of, I don't know, chunky gameplay and sort of the graphics do bring it down a little bit. What do we have next? Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler is, at the time that it came out, I think was one of my favorite JRPGs ever. It was scratching that retro itch that I just had been longing to scratch. And it felt so good. It felt so good. The music by Yasunori Nishiki was just gorgeous. And the themes that were woven throughout were just, it just blew my mind at the time. Now, with several years of retrospective to kind of put this in perspective for myself, do I still think it's that great? Well, it was the grindiest game I think I'd ever played up to that point, which is saying something because I grew up in the era of NES and Super NES JRPGs, which were known to be very, 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 very grindy. So to call Octopath Traveler the grindiest is a big statement. I never did finish the final secret boss because I feel like the game was asking me to grind my characters to like level 99 to even have a chance of being able to beat that. Again, I mean, maybe just bad at video games. Maybe that's the reason I couldn't beat it, but I don't know. I think the grindiness keeps it from the S tier. I hate to say it. I think it does. I think it brings it down to A. The disconnectedness of the stories kind of bothered me. I know they bothered some people more than others, but I don't know. I think it's an A tier game, or is it a B tier game? It's a B tier game because Octopath Traveler 2 addressed a lot of the complaints with Octopath Traveler and made a ton of improvements. Now, do I like Octopath Traveler 2 more than 1? Well, I never finished Octopath Traveler 2. I don't know, I got maybe 15 hours into it, and I've abandoned it. Will I ever go back to it? I don't know, I kind of hope I do, but I can't say for sure that that's going to happen. Just because, I don't know, when Octopath Traveler 1 came out, there was nothing else competing for my attention. I wasn't collecting games yet, so I was just kind of playing a new game that had come out. So I was able to kind of devote dozens and dozens of hours to this one game, and I didn't feel guilty about it, because with the backlog, you add the element of guilt that happens with people like me. Octopath Traveler 2 came out in a much more crowded field, for yours truly at least. So, does it make sense to rank the game higher because it is, I think, objectively better, even if I did not have the same or a more positive experience with it? I'm gonna call it a B as well. As you can tell, I haven't thought this through. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. We're going with the gut. The gut rules right now. And the gut says, Octopath Traveler, fantastic series. It's a B tier game for me. B tier. Won't apologize for it. Moving on. All right. The longest 5 minutes. I just did a video recently about some Switch hidden gems, which you can watch if you want to. I think there are some really cool hidden gems on the Switch that are worth checking out, that are not the AAA crazy hyped releases like some of these are. The longest 5 minutes was one that it shattered my expectations. It was beautiful and moving, and I'm almost tempted to put it in S tier just on the off chance that somebody from NIS America or Japan were to stumble upon this video and see my love for this game and think, we need to do more games like this, because it's beautiful. It's such a unique experience, and it's just so lovingly crafted. Yeah, we're just gonna do it. It's an S tier. It's great. It's not a AAA experience. If you're going in expecting a challenging game, forget about it. If you're going in expecting the deepest plot with the most twists and the most complex characters, forget about it. This is its own sort of thing. And watch the video if you're at all curious about it. I will rave about it until the day I die. I think it's phenomenal. And if you disagree, I guess that's okay, but you're incorrect. Oh. What do we have next? Let's jump down to Ys Origin, why don't we? Ys Origin is one of my favorite Ys games, we'll just say that. I did not connect strongly with any of the Ys games 1 through 7, let's say. They're fine. I played through them all to completion, but none of them were like, wow, this is amazing. This is a fantastic game. I can see how the series evolved into what it is today, and I do think that today it is one of the best action role-playing series, period. It's phenomenal. But for me, Ys Origin was the first time that I was like, yes, this is top tier stuff. This is astonishingly good. So I feel like because of that, I kind of owe it to myself and to you, frankly, to put this up in S tier. Just tuck it in right there. Pat it on the head. Good Ys. Good Ys. All right. The World Ends With You Final Remix. Did not like this game. I loved The World Ends With You, don't get me wrong. Do not misconstrue what I'm saying. The World Ends With You was a brilliant Nintendo DS game. Loved it. Fantastic. Did not care for the Switch port. I was so looking forward to being able to play it on the TV. I had hoped that they would have done something better to make it control well, you know? At the same time, it still contains The World Ends With You, the story, the music, the characters, they're all in there. The gameplay kind of pooped the bed. So I'm not going to put it in D, but I am going to put it in C, because Square Enix, you gotta do better, and you can do better. I know you can. I believe in you. Oh boy. We got a decent spread so far. Let's do Bravely Default 2. Bravely Default is the successor to Final Fantasy, to traditional Final Fantasy, for everyone who sort of bemoans the end of turn-based Final Fantasy games. Rest assured, Square Enix still cares about them. They are just now under the Bravely Default banner. This is the series that has classic turn-based combat with the classic job system. It adds its own sort of wrinkles to the formula with the brave and default options during battle, where you can charge up extra attacks and use them all at once. It's pretty great, and I think that the Bravely Default series is an A-ranked series, and I think Bravely Default 2 fits in nicely there. It's not an S-rank game for me, and I'm having a hard time articulating why. I think an S-ranked game for me is one that when I finish, I just want to tell everybody how much I loved it. I want to just gush and gush and gush about an S-tier game. An A-tier game is typically, and I realize I'm kind of contradicting myself because Crystar I've gushed about quite a bit, but that's, I guess, because those elements that I gushed about were so good that they sort of transcended the barrier. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go, guys, give me a break. I don't know, I'm stupid. For the most part, an A-rank game is one that I thoroughly enjoy, have a fantastic time with, but I'm not blowing up Twitter, talking about it nonstop. It's a great game that I think you absolutely should check out if you are into the sorts of things I'm into. But an A-rank game is not bad. I don't need to defend an A-rank game. If I've ranked a game in A, you know that I think it's great. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Bravely Default 2. Great game. Live Alive. Live Alive. Another great game. Another fantastic entry in the sort of HD 2D thing that Square Enix has just been leaning super hard into. Graphical stylings aside, I really enjoyed the different stories. Each character is sort of their own mini JRPG contained within this box full of JRPGs. And I mean, some of them are better than others, but I think overall the package is just really fantastic. And I hope that this one did well. I haven't looked up sales rankings or anything like that because, I don't know, sales don't matter that much to me. I don't measure a game's worth based on how well it sells, but I would be happy if it sold well because I think that would show Square Enix that, hey, there's a market for these really good, really unique games, and please make more of them. And I guess you could make the argument that Octopath Traveler is sort of the successor to Live Alive, carrying on the tradition of multiple stories. A little bit different because Live Alive, all the stories take place across the span of time, and none of them are directly connected to each other. Sort of. I mean, they are, but you have to play it. So, I mean, yeah, you could say Octopath Traveler is sort of the successor to that, but there's never been anything exactly like Live Alive, and I think that's a shame. I think we need more of that. So I'm gonna A-rank this one. This one's getting dropped into the A. All right, what do we got next? Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. Tales of Vesperia, as I understand it, is one of the most beloved Tales entries. Fantastic main character in Yuri, and it's got a doggo. Doggo is one of the party members, and he has a pipe for some reason. Nobody ever explained to him the hazards of smoking. Great characters, fun graphical styling using the cel-shaded thing. I don't think a ton of Tales games actually went that route. And it looks great. The definitive edition is wonderful. It adds a bunch of stuff from the Japanese-only PS3 version. It's a fantastic game, and as a Tales fan, I can't rank it any lower than an A. Fire Emblem Three Houses. I might get in trouble with the Fire Emblem games because I know the fan base is very vocal and very divided especially between the two Switch entries. To me, I had fun playing Three Houses. I did. I know that I did. I remember having fun. I don't, however, remember much of anything about the game. And that's weird to me because I invested dozens of hours into playing it. But I couldn't tell you anything about the story. I could tell you barely anything about the characters. I think Bernadetta was like a kind of a goofy loner who was very socially awkward. That may be all I can tell you about the characters and the story of this game. And that's a bummer to me because, like I said, I remember enjoying it. I think it's a B. It was my first full Fire Emblem experience. I dabbled a little bit in some other entries, never really got very far. Three Houses was my first full-on Fire Emblem experience that I played to completion, and it got me into the series, but it did not affect me in the same way that our next game, Fire Emblem Engage, did. Fire Emblem Engage was leaps and bounds better in terms of gameplay, if you ask me, based on, like I said, what I remember of Three Houses. I definitely feel like I remember having more fun with Engage. I love the fact that Alir, the main character, is a character and participates in the story. It seems like a novel concept, in talking to some people online about, JRPGs in general. I feel like sometimes like I'm the weirdo for being like, I think if you want to tell a good story, you need to have your protagonist participate in it, be a person, be a character that I can relate to. Like, I'm not, I don't ascribe to the Western RPG philosophy where my character is a blank slate that I am, embedding myself into. I've never felt that way. I'm not the main character in Dragon Warrior. Like, I don't feel like that guy. It doesn't make the game better that he has no personality. And that's maybe a bad example because nobody had any personalities in the original Dragon Warrior. But Persona 5. I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble. Persona 5, Joker, the story is not improved by him not having a person. I'm not gonna get into a rant. We're not here to rant. You know how I feel about this. Silent protagonists have gotta go. They are an enormous detriment to storytelling in role-playing games. I feel like they hold the genre back from being taken seriously as a storytelling medium. I will die on this hill. Come at me. So, to me, Engage is an A-ranked game. I think that there were obviously some problems with it, and I recognize some of the problems that I've seen people talk about online, but I enjoyed it so much more than Three Houses that there's just no way that I could rank it the same. So, A-tier game. Let's do Xenoblade. We're gonna knock out all the Xenoblades. Boom, 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 boom. One after the other. Oh boy, it's probably gonna upset some people too. That's why we're doing this though, right? We get a little kind of burst of energy when somebody upsets us on the internet, and that just fills us with rage, just beautiful, beautiful rage, and we want to go nuts on the keyboard. So I'm providing that to you today. You're welcome. I don't know. Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. How do I rank these? And Torna. I've got Torna in here as well. How do I rank these? I'll go in order. Xenoblade Chronicles is... God, I'm sorry. It's a B. It's a B for me. I think I had a lot of fun with it, but if I'm comparing it to A, all the other Switch JRPGs I've played, and B, the other Xenoblade games, it falls right in the middle for me. It's not one that I thought was the most amazing thing I'd ever played. And that's just the way I feel about it. Some of it was colored by the fact that the first time I tried to play it was on the 3DS, and I did not get very far, and I just had a hard time figuring out the systems. I don't know. The MMO, like the single-player MMO style of gameplay, is not something that I've ever felt super connected to. So that, coupled with some of the more esoteric design decisions in that game, kind of turned me off. The definitive edition on the Switch is leaps and bounds better than the 3DS version, and I'm assuming the Wii version as well. So that pulls it out of the C rank and puts it firmly in the B for me. But that's kind of the way it is. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, this one I enjoyed a great deal more, and that's going in A rank for me. Along with Torna, I do feel that I enjoyed the gameplay a bit more in Torna, some of the tweaks they made to the systems. The reason, I don't know, I'm on the fence actually, A or B with Torna, because that whole terrible community building thing that you had to do to progress the story was terrible. Bad decisions were made here, and they shouldn't have been, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer that they did that. But no, I mean, it's still Xenoblade 2. It's still a very, very, very good game. It's gonna sit there comfortably in A. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Let me tell you how I feel about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I love it. I loved it so much, you guys. I thought it was just so good. The story, the characters. I just loved watching these characters interact with each other. Tetsuya Takahashi and his team, they are so adept at creating meaningful character relationships between these characters in these parties. Just letting them talk, just letting them kind of understand each other. It's beautiful, and more games need to do it. Like, have the characters sitting around a fire and just talking to each other. It's not advancing the plot. It's not revealing deep, dark secrets about the machinations of the enemies. It's just like, here are these people, and they feel real, and let's watch them interact with each other and grow closer together. It's beautiful, and Xenoblade 3 did it better than any of the other Xenoblade games, and honestly better than any other game I think I've ever played. So, S tier. Yep, S tier. For sure. Okay. Let's get the Trails games next, why don't we? The expectation is I'm gonna put them both in S, and I understand that because I'm a big, giant dork for the Trails games. At various times, I don't know, my feelings fluctuate about individual games in the Trails series. Maybe at some point I'll do a whole Trails series ranking. That would be fun. That would be fun. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Anyway, my feelings have fluctuated, and I think for me right now, Zero is an A. Azure is probably going to be an S. They're not fundamentally that different from each other. Obviously, it's kind of one long story, but I think Zero is sort of the ramp up, and Azure is sort of the payoff for all of that ramp up. And a lot of the Trails games kind of follow that formula, whereas, like Trails in the Sky Part 1 is kind of bog standard JRPG with some compelling characters and like a pretty world and interesting backstory. But the story doesn't really get going until the very end, and then Trails in the Sky second chapter is like, boom, it's just everything is happening. I feel like it's kind of the same thing here. And the Cold Steel games did it twice. They had the first Cold Steel ramping up into the second, and then the third Cold Steel ramping up into the fourth. So that's just kind of how they like to do things. That's fine. I'm on board with it because serialized storytelling is my jam. So yeah, I think that feels right to me. That feels right to me. Okay. Mato Anomalies. I don't remember where I first heard about this game. It was a YouTuber who got their hands on an earlier version of the game before it came out, a preview build or whatever, and did a little preview of the game, and I thought, that looks pretty interesting. It's sort of a cyberpunk JRPG, sort of echoes of Persona, where you're diving into some sort of metaverse world to fight enemies, and then by day you are this detective sort of solving these sorts of problems. And I was pretty excited about it. I remember the YouTuber, and I wish I could remember who it was so I could give him credit. The YouTuber kind of saying, yeah, I mean, it's cool, but like, I don't know, I'm not feeling some parts of it. And I was like, really? Like, it looks so cool. Well, so I bought it, and I played. I did my best, you guys. I did my best to play this game. I think I got 2 hours into it, and I just couldn't take it anymore. It feels so janky, and maybe it's not this way on other consoles, but it's so stuttery. The actual implementation of the gameplay is not as fun as I thought it would be. Battles are, turn-based battles. Everybody shares a health meter, which is an interesting concept, but I didn't feel like it did anything astonishing with it. Maybe it does later, but like I said, I couldn't get past the first couple of hours because of the jank. The jank was real. So if there was a D-rank game on this list, it's this one. I'm sorry. I really wanted to like it. I was like primed to like it, and the issues just dragged it down for me. So there you go. First D-ranked game. To the Moon. To the Moon. Is it even a JRPG? I don't know. It's debatable. It's not really debatable. It's not a JRPG. It probably doesn't belong on this list, but I put it here. And past Brandon, when he was putting this list together, seemed to think that it should be here. And I don't want to step on his toes because he was me. So I'm going to say it's fine. It looks like a JRPG, right? Made in RPG Maker, I'm assuming. Something like that. And it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. It is just a gorgeously told story, sort of an adventure game sort of deal, where you're diving into the memories of a dying old man with the goal of altering his memories so that he believes he went to the moon, because that's what he always wanted to do. And so he's hired you to come and sort of fulfill his dying wish, which is to go to the moon. Ethics of that aside, seems debatably problematic, but you know, I guess he's dying, so what's the big deal? It's just a wonderful story, and it deserves as much attention as it can get. So I'm gonna S rank it, because even though it's not technically a JRPG, might not belong on this list, it's really good and you should check it out. Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition. So this was the first time that we got to play Radical Dreamers in an official English translation. So I am glad to have finally been able to do that, you know, 25 years later or whatever it is. And it's a text-based game, so it's not amazing. I only played through it once. I didn't get a bunch of different endings. I know you can get multiple endings in there, just like in the other Chrono games. And it was cool. It was more of a novelty, though, right? The real star of the show is the Chrono Cross Remaster. And I grabbed the physical from PlayAsia because I really wanted to have it on the shelf. Also, the cover is just beautiful. I think the remastered edition cover is just gorgeous. I love that art. My feelings on Chrono Cross have changed over time. When I first played it, I was just so excited for a sequel to Chrono Trigger that I think a lot of the game's issues didn't surface for me until kind of in retrospect or future playthroughs. Now, you know, nowadays I can sit down and play Chrono Trigger anytime. I can start at the beginning and play through to the very end, and I enjoy every second of it. I have the hardest time playing through Chrono Cross, and that's been the case for years. I've tried over the decades. I've tried to go back to Chrono Cross and play through it. The music is just, the music is beautiful. And, you know, graphically speaking, it's a little rough, but like on the PlayStation 1, it was actually pretty good. Like it was like end of life PlayStation 1, and they were really pushing that thing hard. So, you know, in comparison to the games of its day, it looked really good. Today, it's like, but, you know, product of its time, I guess. Chrono Cross, Radical Dreamers Edition. It hurts me a little bit as a Chrono series fan, but I feel like it's kind of a B. I don't know. I really want more, you know, I want more from the Chrono series, and I think it's crazy that they're just not doing it. Maybe they're afraid that people are gonna put it in a B rank if they do any more games. But I don't know, it's Chrono Trigger is my favorite game of all time, but I also feel like Square Enix have put it on a pedestal and have worshipped it, and they're a little bit afraid to do anything with it for fear of tarnishing that legacy. And I'm not one who thinks, oh, if you reboot this thing or do a sequel to this thing, you're gonna ruin the original. How can you make a Cowboy Bebop live action series? You're gonna ruin the original. You're gonna retroactively destroy my feelings for it. No, that's silly. That's nonsense, because you have the original. You can ignore the new stuff if you want to and just play the original. Don't give me that. But I feel like that's a very common feeling, a very common sentiment that people have, so I guess I kind of understand why they're not doing it. This one actually, okay, so I've had this in various forms for a long time. I ended up getting it on the Switch because I guess I was just buying limited run games for a while. I thought that limited run was a curator of beautiful and fantastic games, and they didn't just publish crap. Turns out they do. Like, they just publish whatever anybody will pay them money to publish, which is fine. That's a business, right? They're there to make money. They're not, you know, they may have higher minded goals than some companies, but they still are a business and they're there to make money. So I don't fault them for putting out crappy games. Saturday Morning RPG, though, turns out not actually a crappy game. I think it's actually pretty good. It's very nostalgic. If you are my age, 40-ish, you probably will find a lot to love in this. Especially even if you're a little bit older. I feel like a lot of the cartoons and stuff that they're referencing, I was just too young to really get into. Like, I kind of saw Transformers, I kind of saw G.I. Joe, but it was more like the toys and less the cartoon for me, because I was maybe just a little too young to get into it. So if you're like 43, 44-ish, or maybe even a little bit older, there's so many like references to those classic shows and things in this game, and just the 90s in general, the 80s and 90s. Like, it's, you know, you use a magic trapper keeper to fight enemies, and you have scratch and sniff stickers that give you power-ups, and it's wacky and it's charming and it's hilarious. I think that it is worth a play. It's not going to blow your mind, particularly if you are not aging gamer like some of us. I would say it's a B for me, which again, just to be clear, B is still a very good game, and I don't want you to don't get it twisted. If you're below a B, I've got some serious issues with you, and you might even be a bad game. But a B is a good game, and that's just a fact. Final Fantasy, the Pixel Remaster. Well, I've only honestly played a couple of these so far, so it's not super fair for me to rank it. But, I mean, they are just recreations of the classic 1 through 6 Final Fantasy games with orchestrated music. And that to me is worth quite a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in A, because even at its worst, I don't think Final Fantasy falls far below an A for me. So all of those games, at least an A. Some of them might even be S. Final Fantasy 6, come on. You kidding me? Final Fantasy 4, my intro really to the world of JRPGs. Not my intro, but my solidified my love of JRPGs, we'll say. That's an S tier game, but I think A is fair and kind of evenly covers the entire experience. So, all right, Collection of Mana. Collection of Mana grabs the Game Boy game, Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and what's it called? Trials of Mana, the Seiken Densetsu 3 game that we never got over here. And the Mana games are great. They do have a lot of jank to them, particularly Secret of Mana. And I don't know if it's blasphemous for me to say that, but they are kind of janky. Like, there's glitches galore, and the combat in, at least like I said, Secret of Mana is slower than it needs to be because of the meter charging and everything. It's a classic, and I think it deserves all of the adoration that it's received, and I do like it quite a bit. It's a B. It's a B for me, dog. It's a B for me. Mary Skelter. So I have Mary Skelter 2 because Mary Skelter Nightmare is the one that I'm actually ranking. I haven't played 2 yet, but I played the original, and it's included on the cart with Mary Skelter 2. So that's why 2 is here and not the cover for 1. I did not play it on the Vita because it became like $500, which is silly. Anyway, Mary Skelter Nightmares is a ton of fun. I'm having a blast with it. The story is just weird. The characters are really funny. The combat is fun, if kind of a little basic JRPG dungeon crawler sort of deal. It's a very good game. I enjoy it quite a bit, and I will almost certainly play the rest of the series, having enjoyed the first one so much. I'm gonna say it's a B. It's a B. Ara Fell. So this again is a dual cart thing. It has Ara Fell and The Rise of the Third Power, which is sort of the successor from the same studio, on the single cart. And I've only played Ara Fell so far, so I'm really only ranking Ara Fell. Keep that in mind. I've heard Rise of the Third Power is also very good, just haven't gotten to it yet. So, Ara Fell is a kind of a throwback pixel sort of 16-bit style JRPG, and this is one of those that I think if it had come out when I was a teenager in this era, it would have just like blown me away. Just the story, the characters, the art, the music, everything is just very good. To me, it feels like it doesn't quite hit an S rank game. It is a bit on the short side, which honestly I don't consider that a fault. I think that's fine. I think it tells its story, it tells it well, and then it gets out, it's done, and there's no need to pad it out. But that's something that, I want to make people aware of. If you're looking for a 90-hour JRPG experience, you're not going to get that in RFL, but you are going to get a dozen hours of very, very good entertainment. So for me, I call this an A rank game. Yeah. Omori. Oh boy. Oh boy, Omori. Omori is an Earthbound clone that does so much more than just be an Earthbound clone. It's not satisfied to just have goofy characters and wacky enemies and trippy backgrounds and things. Like, it has that, but it's so much deeper and more meaningful than that. It's a hard game, and by that I mean it can be challenging at times, but it's difficult. It presents some really challenging material from an emotional perspective. So if you are sensitive to some sort of, dark, heavy themes, you might want to read a little bit about it before you just dive in, for your own mental health. But if you're able, I cannot recommend Omori enough. It is one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. Period. End of sentence. It's an S. Undertale. What can I say, me, a humble little YouTuber, what can I say about Undertale that hasn't already been said by so many others so much more articulately? Undertale is essentially the work of one person, and it is one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking role-playing experiences I've had. Everything about it is wonderful. I can't think of a bad thing about Undertale. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's things that people would largely agree could use improvement, and that even Toby Fox, the creator himself, would agree needs improvement. But I can't think of them right now. I just remember the feeling of playing this and loving it. It's an S. Boom. And finally, if you followed my channel at all, and if you have, thank you, by the way, I appreciate you. But if you followed my channel at all, you know that Harvestella is one of my all-time favorite video games. It is certainly my favorite Switch game. It may even have elevated beyond just the Switch and become one of my all-time, it is one of my all-time favorite games. I'm comfortable saying that. It is beauty. It is wonder. It is God tier. Is there a tier above S? Can they put a tier above S, please? Because Harvestella is just a work of art, and I love it so much. And I hope you'll give it a try if you haven't, because it needs as much love as it can get, because it's, I would call it probably a AA game. It's not a AAA game. It didn't get the full budget. But man, they used the money they had very wisely. They invested in the things that make it just a beautiful and unforgettable experience. Obviously, I mean, it's a D right now. It's an S rank game. It's just, man, please play Harvestella. Give it a shot. Maybe you won't like it, and if you don't, I'm sorry. But it's just wonderful. It's just so good. It's so good. That's my list. Those are all the Switch JRPGs that I've played to my memory. I'm frantically scrambling around in my brain right now trying to find any others that I might have forgotten. I think that's it. What do you think? Am I crazy? Is this ranking just bananas? Maybe it is. I don't know. It was, like I said, it was all just gut. Obviously, I've got only one game in C and one game in D. You might be thinking, you're not ranking right. That's not how ranking works. You can't have so many games in S and A and not have hardly any games in C and D. Like, what is that? Okay, I know. Like, if I was forced to rank them in, like, order, like, 1 through, I don't know, 22, whatever I have here, that would be an even harder thing for me to do. The tier list is great because I can say, hey, I love this game, I also love this game, and I also love this game. I understand. I hope you're not disappointed by this. I hope you weren't expecting me to rag on more of the games that I own. Typically, I tend to, I'm curating my collection now so that I'm not just buying every JRPG that I see. I'm trying to get games that I think, at least strongly suspect, are going to be good. Obviously, I've, had a couple of misses in that regard, but generally speaking, I've, hitting all the ones that I'm pretty sure are going to be bangers, so that's kind of why this is the way it is. I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to hear how you would rank some of these. Like, if you think I'm way off base on one of them, you think Mato Anomalies is great and should be significantly higher, let me know why. I'm not opposed to going back to it. You know what I mean? I'll give it another shot if you can tell me that it's going to be great. But this is kind of where I stand right now. Let me know what you think down below. Please, if you don't mind, like the video. It helps so much with the YouTube algorithm. And would you mind subscribing to the channel as well? We don't do videos like this all the time. This is just a little bit of a different thing for a change, mix it up a little bit. But we do JRPG reviews here. We do lists of interesting games where I tell you a little bit about all these different JRPGs that I've played, games that I want to play, things like that. It's just a fun place to hang out and talk about the genre that we all love. So please consider subscribing if you haven't. Anyway, that's it for this video. Until next time, bye.